I'm Roy Potter, a former U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel. Welcome to the Potter Expositor. Hi ladies and gentlemen, it's May 16th, 2017, and I'd like to start this video by talking about the website and the information that's put out by True Pundit. And you can find them on the web at www.truepundit.com, and you can also find them on Twitter and also under Thomas Paine 1774, I believe is what it is. Anyway, about a week and a half ago, I get a kick out of these guys because they always have good information, and it usually takes a little while before what they find out, what they break before it finally hits the news, even the alternative or the mainstream news. But they're always right on, and I want to let them know that I really appreciate their hard work and what they do. I hear their satire and their jokes. Sometimes they say something in a joking way, but they're really serious, and I understand that. But at any rate, about a week and a half ago, they said that it's going to be an interesting week or 2 weeks, and you know, they're going to have popcorn ready to watch what's going on. And of course, we've seen all of this with the Comey firing and finding out about Seth Ridge and finding out about the cover-ups of the FBI in a number of things, and the Department of Justice, etc., etc. So I just wanted to again say that they were right on as usual. So I wanted to bring that up. And before I get started on anything else, because I really think it's important, I want you to know once again that I entirely support President Trump. I understand what he's up against. And yes, I've been frustrated with the way he's tried to progress, not on his agenda as much, but as far as who he brings around him. And so that's the first thing I want to bring up this video is this. Remember, President Trump, during the campaign you brought up and had a video about the snake and the lady. And that the lady saw this snake and tried to pick it up and to protect it and took care of it and all of that, brought it into her home. And then one day the snake bites her. And the lady said, "Gee, I've taken care of you, I've done all these things, and now you bite me and I'm going to die. Why did you do that? Why did you do that?" And the snake replies, "Oh, you're stupid. I'm a snake. You know, of course I'm going to bite you. You know, that's what I am." So you told us that story about ISIS, but you didn't apply it to those that you have surrounded yourself with in the White House. And I understand all the reasons. You're trying to get the government started, people on the inside that know how to work things. I understand that. But you violated your own allegory. And so right now we see this thing happening in the White House. And actually it needs to happen throughout the government. And again, unfortunately, it's the only way to go about it. Comey was the first step, and I applauded you for that, and I will continue to applaud you for it. And the rest of the top level, at least of the FBI, needs to be totally cleaned out, and I think you know that. And that goes for all of the intelligence agencies, actually. It's a very, very sad thing, but it's just something that you have to do. You're not in a political climate anymore, President Trump. You're in a civil war. That's what you are in. And I think you understand that, but you really, from my humble opinion, you really need to step up to the plate now and know that you're at a war here in your own country, literally, and that it could easily start into a shooting war. It already really did. We see what's happening with Seth Ridge. That in fact, he did have contact with WikiLeaks, at least according to the private investigator. And isn't that interesting that the family that once, you know, said that there was some wrongdoing here, possibly on the part of the government. They didn't quite say it that way, but they wanted an investigation. Now, when it comes back on the DNC, the family spokesperson, right, this Brad Bauman, who's actually a DNC progressive hack operative, steps up to be a spokesman and says that the family's not going along with this idea that Seth Rich was murdered because of the WikiLeaks things that he was involved in. Well, and of course I don't know the end story on that either, but you know, you look at the motive, you look at the opportunity, you look at who has, you know, the ability to benefit from all this, and it's pretty obvious. And the fact that the the police never really investigated, and the fact that it was a DNC person that was killed, and now there's possibly some corruption, of course, at that level, and the FBI still won't look at it, just like they won't look at the pedophilia rings, just like they won't look at the leaks in the White House, etc., etc. Again, coming back to this other thing, this is a war on Donald Trump and the American people, because the deep state sees that this understanding of how our government has been corrupted and used criminally by criminals is being covered up by the very agencies that should be protecting us. The FBI, the DOJ. No dispersion on Sessions, at least not yet, but there are a lot of these operatives still in these departments, and they need to be discovered and they need to be removed. CIA, NSA, etc., etc. The State Department, the EPA, the Department of the Interior. I saw where and rightly so, he's the president, he's congratulating the Department of Interior law enforcement officers, I would not call them that, but where he's congratulating them for their hard work. Yes, but when you find corruption, you need to speak out on that too, President Trump. It's absolutely necessary in order to clean this government out. Okay. Along that same line, we have this situation where the IRS, the agents there and the bureaucrats are saying, well, they don't want to testify to Congress because it will put their lives in danger. Why? Because the things that they've done, the American people want to come and execute them themselves. You know, I said a long time ago when I went up on that bomb hoax in Toole Army Depot that I don't care if the government gets embarrassed. These people have to be held accountable for their wrongdoings. If you're going to go after little people, which you shouldn't do anyway, the for-profit prison system, which encourages the judges and the lawyers, and I don't know what all the ethical things are, but I imagine that a lot of these people have financial interests in this, and not just ideological. You know, we put these people in there and these horrific circumstances, and yet these people who are afraid of their lives, who have, in the IRS, etc., who have caused all this distress and all these broken lives, and even murder, even suicide, all this, and we're going to let them off because they're afraid for their lives? No, we can't do that. We have to hold everyone's feet to the fire in government when they misuse their positions. I don't care if they're afraid or not. All the more reason, actually, because it shows that they should be afraid. They're cowards. They're murderers, they're thieves, they're liars, and they're cowards. And they need to be held accountable for it. Comey, obviously, McCabe, all of these guys have failed to investigate corruption and criminality in the government. In fact, they have gone out of their way to cover it up. Again, the Seth Ridge murder, the emails are a problem with Clinton, and I realize that. But that's kind of like using Monica Lewinsky to cover up, you know, the other stuff that was going on with the selling to the Chinese back in the 90s, etc., and the bombings and all that. As bad as the emails are by Clinton, the real story behind that, of course, is the Clinton Global Initiative, the Clinton, what do they call it? Anyway, yeah, the Clinton Foundation, thank you. And their connections to the Chinese and the Russians, Uranium One, all of that. The child trafficking in Haiti, the stealing of the money there, and that might not be a U.S. issue directly, but certainly it can be as far as other corroborative evidence as to what these people have been doing. So we're ignoring all of that, FBI, CIA, you know, State Department, on and on. If you hide a crime, what is that? Accessory after the fact, maybe even conspiracy, real conspiracy, not just because you're showing up at a demonstration to demonstrate and protest against the government for their corruption. which the government wants to go there. They want to make it so that that's a conspiracy that you all show up to, you know, to demonstrate against a corrupt government. As President Trump so righteously and courageously said, we worship not government, but God, our Creator. And the government didn't create us. As a matter of fact, the government was created by the people in trust under a charter called the Constitution of the United States. And that is what we expect them to follow, and they don't. So often, almost all the time. I should say, they shall almost never follow the Constitution. Almost never. You see that, you know, we haven't heard too much about North Korea. A little bit on Syria with this crematorium business, and of course, the government conveniently forgets about the crematorium they created in Waco, where they killed innocent women and children for their politically incorrect stand. That was real convenient. All the murder that's been going on by our government, but well, how would we feel if somebody stepped in on our business, or at least the deep state, if somebody stepped in on their business from another country as we do everybody else's? Waco alone should have been a reason for somebody else to get involved, and of course they didn't, because our government runs so much. But anyway, my point of bringing that up is that we're not hearing much about North Korea, about Syria, about Russia. I mean, a little bit, but mostly in how it relates to Trump's espionage and treasonous actions and all this. I hope you understand that what you're seeing here is proof that the deep state isn't really concerned about Russia, although they want control of it. It really isn't concerned about North Korea. What it's concerned about is retaining power over the American people, and Trump is the symbol of that. So, as so many commentators have said, he's going to make mistakes, etc., and we should call him out on it, as I vehemently and voraciously and viciously point out all the time, because we must hold government's feet to the fire, and we should still do it with Trump. But we should also see that the real enemy of the deep state, and when I say the deep state, I mean all these people in the bureaucracies and the corporations that control the government, including Congress. The Congress is so corrupt it's unbelievable. But that just shows that the real warfare is against what Trump stands for. And I know most of you already understand that, and so I won't go there to any other great detail at this point. Okay, and I think I'll bring up one other thing, and that's this. There was a story here a few days ago, and I can't say the name, I don't speak Russian, but his name was something like Yevgeny Nikulin, an alleged Russian hacker that claims the FBI asked him to confess targeting the Clinton campaign. Now, since this story first broke, this could be nothing at all. It could be somebody trying to get in the spotlight, or it could be somebody who actually is breaking the fact that the FBI, here it goes again, creating the bad guys that don't exist, or forcing decent people to become bad guys in name only, not in intent, so that they can divert the actual narrative away from the corruption in our government, the real people that are doing the really bad things. Pedophilia, again, I want to point out a story that I've got linked below, down below. I actually saw it from Craig Sawyer. I'd encourage you to go read it. It's a short read, but it'll kind of put all the pedophilia thing in perspective and why this is such a big issue for us. Okay, not a whole lot of focus, but I hope that is a good update at this point.